Fight.
Welcome back to the Two Pointers Podcast. I'm Trevor Everett. I'll be really short and sweet at the top here. Just wanted to remind you a couple of things and let you know what's going on. As you see in the title, really great conversation with Talia Goodman. Caitlin Clark just broke the NCAA Women's Division I all-time scoring record. She's not far off. As we recorded, she was 100 points away, or 100-ish points away from Pistol Pete's all-time scoring record on the men's side. Caitlin Clark's an incredible player. We dive into what she is, what she means for women's college basketball, and just sports in general, and how she's transcended athletics. So really great conversation with Talia. I think you guys will really enjoy it. Support all of her many links that she is a part of in the description below. Also, don't forget that SeatGeek is the presenting sponsor of the Two Pointers Podcast. Code 2Pointers gets you $20 off your first purchase. If you're looking at any NCAA tournament game here in the future, conference tournaments are getting kicked off here soon. As crazy as that sounds, NBA games for super cheap, concerts, whatever it is, $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek's really great. You get a deal score in the app. It's rated on a color scale, red, yellow, green, of course. Scale of 1 to 10, you get a view of your seat. A lot of really great stuff there. Some good perks all around for SeatGeek as one of the largest ticketing platforms in the United States. Safe and secure and easy to use. Code 2Pointers, that's TWOPOINTERS, gets you $20 off that first purchase. Link in the description below to get that done. Again, thank you to Talia Goodman at Goodman Sport on social media. Enjoy the interview with her. All right, as you heard in the intro, we are joined today by, and I'm going to take a big breath for this one, and I'll introduce her, give her the respect she deserves, and let her talk about what she does as well. Women's basketball and more. This is right off of the bio, so I'm just going to give it just like you have it. They can find it at PEEGS.com. I hope I didn't add an extra E there. The Next, a women's basketball newsroom at The Next Hoops, and then the Hoosier Network as well at the Hoosier Net on Twitter. Bylines and News Observer and Associated Press at Goodman Sport on Twitter. You know her as Talia Goodman. How are you, first of all?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm excited to talk some women's hoops today.
Before we jump into that, you're fresh off of the NBA All-Star Weekend. I would love Indianapolis is like a dream spot for me to go. Couldn't make it work this year. I guess give us like a 60-second elevator pitch on how cool All-Star Weekend is, or what maybe a favorite part was in there. And then, did you stay for the game yesterday?
Well, first of all, Indianapolis is a go-to spot for you that you want to get to. Indy, really?
Well, the basketball lore, the Gainbridge Fieldhouse as like a basketball venue. Yes. Like I have some friends, some of my co-hosts from Everything College Basketball, they live not far from Indy. So somewhere in, I think it's Edinburgh or something nearby. So I just want to get there. I just want to experience it. As a North Carolinian who grew up in Tobacco Road, basketball history is important to me, and Indiana, we wouldn't be here and we wouldn't have what we have in North Carolina without Indiana, and vice versa. So they have like this mutual respect.
Fair enough. But yeah, All-Star Weekend was great. I got to go there for a class that I'm in, actually. So shout out Mike Wells. There were 10 of us who were handpicked to be able to cover All-Star Weekend. We each got one event and then the media availability on Saturday. So wasn't able to stay for the game yesterday, but honestly, I don't know if I'm upset about that too much. So I was there for the Rising Stars game, which was actually turned out to be really cool. The G League team ended up winning a game there, which was the fun story of the night for that one. So it was a great time. I've never been to any sort of event like that. It was a whole different world for me. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like how you summarize that. You were like, look, it's this, and unfortunately, I didn't stay for the game, and like everyone I talked to, it's just you should see the flight logs for Saturday night or Sunday morning. Like it's just people just get out of town, and until they fix it. This is not a planned rant, but like until they fix it, I think it's going to continue to stay that way. I was watching John Fante commentate the PBA last night. Like I had tweeted about it last night. And I was like, this is more entertaining, and I know that sounds like I love bowling more than people probably realize on this show, but yeah, it is what it is. Yeah. All right. I love to hear that. Some really cool stuff, videos at Goodman Sport. Like I said, all the stuff will be linked below as well for you, so people can go check that out. That Paul George question was really good. All right, the obvious topic at hand. I don't have all the numbers in front of me because at the end of the day, the numbers, I say it's meaningless, but like it happened. It has officially been a thing that has built up. I know you were looking forward to it potentially happening on Thursday in attendance. Sorry, I know I was hoping for you on that, but when you have somebody who averages this year alone 32.8 per game, I don't want to cut out anything there to be disrespectful, but when you have somebody averaging 30 plus, like they're just bound to do it anytime. Like that record was going to get broken this month. Obviously, we knew that as we were lining this up. So I want to lead with something that's not directly related to the record because I wanted to kind of get your take on some of the discourse. So we've had some incredible players in women's basketball history. It would be a disservice for me to name them all because I think there's been so many that, like, I don't want to leave anybody out, right? Like all of the guys at the beginning of that time when they started tracking the stats in the mid to late 80s all the way up till now, right? We have incredible players. She's kind of taken the world by storm, though, Caitlin Clark has. And I've heard all kinds of theories or opinions on why she's been so captivating. And you probably saw that video of that, like, watch party where there's, like, 10 or 12 girls, like, young girls that are just excited to see her play. So long-winded to ask this. Why, in your opinion, is she transcending what we have known about women's college basketball?
I think it's the personality, honestly. I think she's just not afraid to be herself, go out there, do it, have some fun. And I think she's just different than anything we've ever seen before. It's not just the logo threes, because sure, there have been people in the past who have done that. She can score at all levels, all 94 feet. It's also, she's a facilitator. She literally does everything for her team. And you look at the team she has, and it's good, but it's not the most impressive or well-built team in the country. But because she's on it, they're always going to be a contender. I mean, if she comes back next year, what, maybe, you never know. It doesn't matter what team she has with her. She can kind of carry that team on a night where she's doing well.
I don't really know how to ask this follow-up because I didn't have it planned, but, like, is she benefiting? I know she's a Gatorade athlete and all this crazy, like, NIL stuff that we're allowed to give now, and I just think it's appropriate because some people like her deserve that credit. But is she elevated to another level because of the ability to get her name out there in a better way? I feel like that's kind of a common question or an obvious question, but do you feel like where we can get with NIL and Gatorade and all this other stuff that was the one that perked my interest, was like, wow, Gatorade athlete, like that's a big deal for somebody that's 21, 22, yeah, who's not a rookie in a league somewhere, which was obviously the previous path.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's the case with players like Angel Reese as well. Like she was just on Sports Illustrated or whatever, or Women's Health. And so I think, yeah, the ability to get your name out there, use social media to your advantage. But honestly, I will say Caitlin I think Angel Reese does that more than Caitlin Clark does. I think Caitlin Clark is about playing her game and it kind of speaks for itself, and the media attention just comes with it. And that's where the NIL comes from. It's not like she's out there seeking it day to day. Like, yeah, she's in commercials and yeah, that's fun to see, but that's not her main goal, obviously, is to win a national championship.
We'll get into that towards the end of this 30 minutes because I think it would be a great segue if that was the next thing we were jumping right into. But I'll kind of let people sit on that one for a minute. Is she the greatest college basketball player ever if she breaks Pistol Pete's record? Like, is it just that simple?
Yes and no. I mean, I think modern day, sure, maybe, but there are, like you said, there are so many names, there are so many players who have done a lot for the women's game, and I don't know what you could determine as what makes someone the best. I mean, I personally, as someone who's 20 years old and has been watching Caitlin Clark more than probably anyone else, thinks that she probably is the best player. I don't know about women's or men's. I'd have to maybe look into that a little bit more, but I think there are just so many players who have done so much for women's basketball, and I think you can look back at those kind of trailblazers and say maybe they're the best player in women's basketball.
Yeah, the question, is, to be clear to the audience, is not intended to put you against Pistol Pete in any way. Like, people are going to bring that up here on the next. It already has been brought up, to be clear. I am a NBA specifically historian more than most because I think we can't learn from what today's game, like the problem with the All-Star game, right? We can't learn from that stuff if we don't understand our history. And he did what he did, 44 points per game, whatever, without playing a freshman season. And that's immediately going to be the argument. People are going to, like, they're just going to be like, well, he did this in 3 years and 88 games. I'm like, when you just look at the number on the screen, you're kind of like, doesn't make sense. And it really, like, it probably never will. And he's like an incredible, there's so much lore around him. That conversation is going to be exhausted by the end of this month. So it was just something I thought to bring up.
What is she, 99 points away? Is that right?
Whatever it was the other day. Yeah, it was like 104 the other. Yeah, I think it was somewhere like between 99 and like 105. I didn't write a lot of the numbers down because I think it's cool and exciting, and that's what's driving this conversation with her,
But it's
at
not.
least recently. But I think it's bigger than that, which is why I'm glad we addressed it. On Thursday, how many times will that? Because obviously you cover the Big Ten. This is my kind of lazy segue. On Thursday, how many times is that going to be seeing her live for you?
It's my first. I was supposed to
Really?
go
Covering the Big Ten?
I was supposed to go earlier this year to see Indiana when because I'm a student at IU, and so obviously I was supposed to go when they played at Iowa, but there was a massive snowstorm,
That's
like
right.
15 inches of snow. I begged my parents. They said, absolutely not. You are not getting in a car and driving that far in my old car that I'm afraid would probably break down.
Midwest snow is no joke.
Anything.
It's no joke.
Yeah.
It would have been just I hate to side with mom and dad here, but that Midwest snow is no joke, and that I don't even know what that trek would look like. But so first time, like anything you're like, I don't really have a question for this, but just anything you're looking forward to, I don't really know anything about Thursday that you want to talk about.
I'm afraid I might be starstruck for the first time in my life. Like, actually, I think I'm gonna look at it and be like, oh my god, like I could be seeing the best player of all time right now, which is just nuts to think about. But I think it'll be a really interesting matchup, to be honest with you, because I think Indiana's deeper than people give them credit for. I mean, obviously you hope Sydney Parrish will be back for that game, but there's no word on that and her foot injury. So we'll have to see what happens there. But even without her, I mean, they've been doing really well. They beat, Michigan State, Purdue easily. So I think it'll definitely be an interesting one. And when you have Mackenzie Holmes on your side, there's no saying what'll happen there. She just became Indiana's all-time leading scorer, which was a really cool moment for her. And I think this rivalry might be bigger than the Indiana-Purdue one at this moment right now. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's a nice segue. So we'll talk about a little bit about you just touched on the team you've covered all year, being a student, being up front and close. And obviously, I remember you mentioned the snowstorm. It was really fun. I remember following that saga, and I couldn't remember. I was like, wait a minute. It was probably your tweets that I was following about like the team's playing and like figured out where it went. And oh my God, is she going to make it there? And I was like, I don't really know who else I would have followed that would have probably been following that. So now I'm giving you credit for that. What is something that's going to make this Hoosiers team? Because I know they're 10th in offensive rating in the country, which is an incredible stat line. Obviously, they can put up points quickly. What, obviously, in the grand scheme of the Big Ten, right? What is something other than the offense that's made them so dangerous? I know you just gave individual players some credit for some accolades there, but is there something being up close, seeing this team in every game and every facet? What makes this Indiana team so difficult to play?
It's just that, including Sydney Parrish, who hopefully will be back soon, everyone can shoot the ball. I mean, even Mackenzie Holmes has started taking threes, which never thought I'd say that, but everyone can shoot the ball at a really high clip. Sarah Scalia is, one of the best shooters, not only in the Big Ten, but in the country. You have Yardinger Zone, who, had an incredible freshman season shooting, hasn't shot it as much. She's expanded her game, but, a very reliable shooter there as well. And then Sydney Parrish, who brings, the grit to this team, but also can, hit it from the outside. And I think that's when I've talked to opposing coaches, the thing they've said is you have to guard everyone from the perimeter. Like there's no one you can't be paying attention to at any given moment. Chloe Moore McNeil, I've put it out there. I think she's the most underrated player in the Big Ten as a whole. She just does everything. She's a facilitator. She can shoot the ball. She's so calm, collected. Obviously they missed Grace Berger from last year, but I think even without her, they have a team that, has the capability to at least make it to the second weekend in March. But they could use a little bit more of the grit that other teams in the Big Ten have, like Ohio State, a little bit Iowa.
Look, the stats back you up on that. They're number one in the country in three-point percentage, which is a glaring number when you look at it. Like 41.4%. You're like, oh my God! Like that means the average has just. Think about how little poor shooting nights have happened to not affect that number below 40. It's crazy to think. And then you mentioned the four players there: 45%, 44%, 43%, and 39.3. Those are on players that have taken more than 2.9 attempts per game. Everyone else is below an attempt a game. So just nuts to think about. Like that can take any game and have them grab complete control of it. Anything else on Indiana before I want to kind of give the Big Ten? You've mentioned some other teams in there. I've seen the tweets as well. Anything else about Indiana that that has impressed you this year? Or, you mentioned other coaches' comments. Anything else about IU before we talk about the Big Ten as a whole?
I mean, it's got to be the coaching is the last thing there. Terry Morin has just done such a phenomenal job with this program and, the years that she's been here. And I think what she continues to do year after year, her roster construction is so well done. They have young talent coming up for when, Mackenzie Holmes is unfortunately no longer here. I wish she had another year, but she does not. So when she's no longer here, I mean, they have, Lily Meister who can step up to the plate. They have recruits coming in. The way that they recruit is it's really clever and it works out. I mean, no one knew Mackenzie Holmes would be what she is today, and they were able to get her. And I think, getting Sydney Parrish back for another year next year, maybe Chloe Moore McNeil, we'll see. Just the players that you've gotten were, maybe under recruited in their time other than the Sydney Parrish. And they did a really good job of getting Parrish, Scalia, and then Geary, who's gone in the portal from last year. And so just the way that this roster is constructed is that everyone knows their role. No one's unhappy with their role. Sarah Scalia wasn't starting last year, but she proved that, she could improve her defense, which has been huge, by the way. She's no longer a defensive liability, which is huge. And now she's starting. So it's, take your time, find your role, and you'll get your spot there.
All right. So we take out the top three of the Big Ten standings for those that are listening: Ohio State, Iowa, Indiana. 13-1, 12-2, and 12-2. So obviously that's your kind of juggernaut three at the top. Mm-hmm. I think I know your answer, but I'm gonna let you have the floor to explain it because I'm not gonna ask is it blank, but who is a sleeper that could potentially knock one of these out of the tournament here in a few weeks?
It's tough. The Big Ten is not as deep. There's a very big cutoff after those three, I would say. I think Maryland is on the rise right now, and I think that's what everyone kind of expected at the beginning of the year, but they had slow start. They've had to deal with some injuries, but they're back at it. So I honestly, I can't give you a straight answer there. I think there will end up being, 6-7 teams that make the tournament, but I don't know if any of them can really, Nebraska did it, sure. But, and that was impressive. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think they'd do it again. If they were given another chance, I don't think they'd beat the juggernaut that is Iowa. So I think if those three given teams, if they're having a bad night, sure, you have a shot. But if they're their best, if they're at their best, they're healthy, I don't think there's any other team in the Big Ten that can beat them.
You tweeted about Michigan State. Is that kind of wavered? I know that was a few weeks ago, but is that kind of wavered a little bit?
It has wavered a little bit. I don't know. I haven't been quite as impressed with them lately. And yes, they took Iowa to, Caitlin Clark doing her buzzer beater thing, of course, which is very, very impressive. But I think they're having a little bit of an off night that night for Iowa. And I think given tournament circumstances, if they were there knocking them off, I don't think there's any chance that Michigan State would knock off in Iowa. Maybe in Indiana. They were really close with Indiana when they were here on the road, and I was really impressed with what I saw from them, but I don't know if I believe in the upset there.
So anything else? I think it's a great way to just put a bow on that, because I know people who follow this sport, they really turn it on here at the end of February, early March, and they're wondering, they're looking around at my tweets, your tweets, and going, who am I really going to be filling out that bracket? Who am I going to be really figuring out? And we're about to get into that. Anything else from the Big Ten that is worth mentioning? I feel like you hit it really well there, that there are just three teams to watch out for that are the best three. Anything else about the conference that people need to know?
Yeah, no, I think that's it. I think Maryland should firmly now be on the right side of the bubble. It'll be interesting. They actually come to Assembly Hall for the last game of their regular season, so that'll be a pretty telling game there for where they'll end up being seated. But I think, like you said, like I said, it's those three teams. Those are the ones that, could potentially make it far in March. And then the rest of them are probably, I don't know if I see any of them making it to the Sweet 16.
All right. So national title, obviously, we're looking forward to April. Where is it this year again? Remind me. I was looking.
Final Four.
The Final Four, yeah.
It's in Cleveland.
Okay, I knew it was Northeast-ish. I knew it was somewhere not in the South, like Arizona or whatever, right? The reason I only even remotely knew that yet was because I always told my mom if State ever made a Final Four of any capacity, she's the reason I'm a State fan, I would take her. So obviously I'm going to put that conversation aside because I'm going to let you answer the question the right way. National title sleepers. People are filling out their bracket and they're like, or at least Final Four contenders, like teams that you're going to be like, wow, like we know there's three in the Big Ten that are going to compete for those spots there. Obviously, we know that Coach Staley and just what she's building in South Carolina, everyone's probably just going to be like, South Carolina, just get, you're down the little one bracket, right? We know that, right? They're going to be a wagon. But who's somebody that you've watched? I know the Big Ten's been a big coverage area for you, but I know you cover it at a large scale.
Yeah.
Who is somebody that people are going to be making their brackets and maybe underlooking, and you're going, that's the team I'm keeping my eye on?
I've got two for you. The first one is someone that, was not underrated heading into the season, but has been overlooked as of recent. They struggled a little bit early, and now they're on a 9-game win streak. It's Virginia Tech, who has done a really good job of building their resume as of late. They have wins over Syracuse, NC State, your NC State, Duke, Louisville, and Liz Kitley and Georgia Amore. I mean, you just can't ever doubt those two. So, I mean, I think that's my big one. I even overlooked them until pretty recently. But I've just been really impressed with the work they've done recently. And I will put a little asterisk next to that NC State win because there was a certain player missing, and it came down to, I think it was a buzzer beater. It was right at the end there.
Lob over the top that like literally only 5 people in the country could have caught and made that play. And I was watching it live. I could tell you, I mean, I'm just having like war flashbacks thinking about it. Oh, I'm so mad. It was just,
It's a rough one.
It was a lob over the top across, like, so I'm trying to visually describe it, right? Say the inbound was basically in front of the bench, or what would have been the bench if that was the side they were on, and they threw it over the basket, caught up on the weak side. I mean, it stuff that you dream of, like if you're a child, like I'm gonna make this play one day, and it just, oh my god, I'm so mad.
Yeah, but they're a very, very impressive team that I think
they are.
I won't spoil my answers for later, but I think they have a chance to go very far. And then the other team I'll have for you is Oregon State. They're just in a loaded conference, and they've been able to show off lately. They beat Colorado and Utah at home and on the road for both of them, which very impressive. They slept their little mountain trip there, and then they just beat UCLA, who's a very good team. The only caveat there is that Reagan Beers is out right now, and she's their girl. I mean, they're probably going to struggle until she gets back. They just lost to USC, but she's averaging 17.5 points per game, 10.7 rebounds per game, shooting 67% from the field. So she's their star post. She held Utah's Alyssa Peely, who's one of the best players in the country, to 4 of 17 when they played. And they're just a reliable team. They're efficient. They don't turn over the ball. They have shooters. They got a little bit of everything. And I think once they get Beers back, they could be a very dangerous team come March.
I like one out west that people might not be awake for a lot. Like same thing with the Mountain West and the men's. So it's, for me, it's like I'm a night owl, so people are like, I get messages all the time like, who should I be watching in the Mountain West? I'm like, are you awake at 11? That's your first question. Oregon State's a good one for that too. I have to give Virginia Tech its own little section here for a second, because again, as painful and annoying as that loss was, they also came to Reynolds and knocked him off as well. So I have to give Kenny Brooks a ton of credit for the coaching that's been on display this year. Obviously the record, like people are going to hear this and they're going to look at their record and go, that's a sleeper. I'm like, yeah, like they're not even the best team in their own conference technically, right? From a ranking standpoint, I guess you could say. But they're top 100 in both points per game and points allowed per game. That's super, super important, because if you can, I mean, they're holding their opponents to 60.4 points per game. To speak to the test, to speak to how good some of the defenses are in women's college basketball, that's 88th in the country. 60 a game is 88th. Like I just would never associate that together. I would think that like they would be they'd be in the top 15 of that. And then just we know what they can do from a scoring standpoint, being 77th per game. So, all right, I'd like this question less as a national title sleeper, but mid-major, somebody that's not in the Power Six that is probably has a chance for you to make the Sweet 16.
There's two that come to mind. Gonzaga is one. I mean, they have just been dominant, like absolutely dominant. But I mean, with the asterisk that they don't really play anyone in conference play, which leads me to rank them a little bit lower. They had a big win over Stanford. That was the huge one at home, but Brink was out for half of that, so that's a little meh. They only have 2 losses, I believe, to Louisville, who is a top 25 team in my eyes for sure, and then Washington State in overtime on the road. So, I mean, a very, very impressive team there that I could definitely see, making a good run. And then the one that I think everyone else would agree with here is Princeton. I've been very impressed with what Princeton has been able to do. I don't have them ranked as of right now just because the Ivy is just not very strong. So it's very hard, but they had some good wins. They played Indiana pretty tough. They had a good non-conference schedule. I will give them that. I think it was UCLA that they played very close to. But they did almost lose to Seton Hall. They had a few iffy moments, and I think they are definitely proving to be consistent in conference play. They were good last year too. They're consistently, I would say, probably one of the better teams in the Ivy, along with Harvard. And so I've just been very, very impressed watching them, especially back in the non-conference play.
All right. Let's do, while we're on the topic of the bracket and stuff, I want to leave room for the rapid fire in the end and let get your plugs in as well before you have to get on the road. Predict the national championship in the winner, or Final Four even. I know people don't like, do the Final Four if you'd like, but I know I am this way. It's hard to do Final Four if you don't know a bracket, right? Because we could pull this clip in 30 days and it's 3 of the 4 teams you picked are playing each other in the South region, and it's going to suck. So I guess just lay it out however you'd like, but national championship and winner and whatever you're most confident in right now.
Yeah, I'll do national championship for you, and I'm going to be a little bit boring here, I think. I mean, I think everyone would agree when I say South Carolina is going to be part of that conversation for the national championship. I wouldn't be surprised. It's kind of their revenge time. They got out in the Final Four last year, and then I also have them facing another team who got knocked off in the Final Four last year, Virginia Tech. Maybe Ohio State with a little, I don't know. We'll see what they're able to do. The last game of the season for them is, I believe, against Iowa. So that'll be huge. But yeah, for now, I'm going to go South Carolina, Virginia Tech. I think, both of their time for revenge here. South Carolina, it's their second season starting 25-0. That's just ridiculous when you think about that. It's ridiculous. It's like 40-something conference wins in a row or something. So it's no surprise that they're good. And even with, the challenging schedule that they have wins over Notre Dame, Duke, who I now have ranked, LSU, UConn. It's, the matchup that would have been last year, both, Final Four teams last year come back. I think either one of them has a very good chance at winning it this year. And just for South Carolina, I believe they are going to win. I mean, I think it's a boring pick there. It's not an upset pick, which I think I very strongly think there could be an upset, just even based on how Tennessee played South Carolina the other day. I was really impressed with. I think they only lost by 11. But South Carolina just has so much to them. They have Cardoso, who's averaging a double-double with 3 blocks a game. Oregon transfer Tahina Pau, freshman Malaysia Fulwiley. They have everything, and they have proven that they can be dominant against the best in the country. And so I think that's what it'll come down to this March is consistency. I mean, you need to be able to win however many games in a row. So I think it's the most consistent team, the most efficient team that's going to win. And I believe that is South Carolina.
Quick question on Staley, because I think people, when they think of women's college basketball, I think of coaching more, right? Gino's going to come up. Yeah. Summit's going to come up. That's somebody I wish for the basketball person in me, just itches wishing that I could have watched her coach live a couple of times. Just because she reminds me of so many people in my life personally. I'm like, if I did something wrong, like just the way she coached, the way she was a leader. So really quick on her resume, 2-time A10 Coach of the Year, 6-time let me make sure I don't laugh in the middle of that because that number sounds stupid. 6-time SEC Coach of the Year. Like people don't no one wins 6 Coach of the Years in any conference. Like that just doesn't happen. 3-time U.S. Basketball Writer Association Coach of the Year, another Coach of the Year, and a couple other Coach of the Year awards as well.
Yeah.
And a lifetime record percentage of 76%. With her next win will be win number 600 for what it's worth. I did not know that. So what makes her so unique and so different?
She's incredible. And little spoiler on a project I'm working on right now, I'm doing a little poll with some coaches on, some different superlatives for coaches in the country. And her name came up a whole lot when we talked about best recruiter and who you'd be scared to go up against in a recruiting battle. And I think she just has that personality that kids are, aching to play for. She just kind of has turned the tide with women's basketball. I'm hoping to meet her someday. I'd love to, but I think it's just her vibe, how she supports everyone around her, whether it's, how she supports the men's team even. Like you see her tweets, you see how positive she is all the time, but she also speaks her mind. And I think that's something that players want to play for. They want to play for a coach who cares, first and foremost. And I think it's just, what you just read off, it's incredible what she's been able to do. It's just really, really impressive stuff.
let me not leave off the 38-15 NCAA tournament record, 5 Final Fours, 2 national championships in 2017 and 2022, and a great player in her own day as well. 131 games at Virginia, 16.3 points per game. I know she'll blush if we bring that up, probably, but or probably hate it, to be honest with you. But yeah, she's just incredible. I'd love to find a way to catch a game of theirs in the next few years. All right, I have a couple rapid fire things for you before you get on the road.
I'm scared.
30 seconds or less. Nah, this is fun. I always do this to first time guests just because it makes you, we've talked about like all this stuff and and it's you've whether you have notes or not, it didn't look like you were looking around. So you're pulling all these stats and players and their stuff out of the air, right? And this stuff is not really, it's supposed to make you think and think quickly. It's nothing crazy. So
all right.
Favorite interview you've ever done?
Jason Tatum was my first.
I had this written down. I knew you were going to say that, so not Jason Tatum.
Also, my worst interview I've ever done. To be fair, it was the youngest I've ever been doing one. But I think, other than that, I gotta think back on this. Scott Drew was always my favorite. He's always my favorite. He's just the best. He's all smiling all the time.
Love that. I knew, like I had it written down. I know it's not rapid fire if I'm interjecting here, but Jason Tatum is in the Twitter bio or in the Twitter whatever you call it header. And I was like, I know what she's probably going to say. So I like the Scott Drew answer, though. He's an incredible coach, and the coaching tree there's so much you could ask him about. So
yeah, I talked to him actually the day after they won their national title. I got to talk to him, and that was probably the best interview I've ever done.
Nice. All right, so Jason Tatum / Scott Drew. Got it. Dream interview.
Caitlin Clark. I mean, if I can ever get her, I may be staying in Indiana this summer, and she's on the fever. I mean, you never know. So hopefully.
Love it. I knew that answer was probably just like, that's why I had a few, because I'm like, some of these are going to be 30 seconds or less and on the less side. All right, best game you've ever experienced in person?
Ooh. Crosstown Shootout might be close. Trying to think. Actually, I said the other day, didn't I say this the other day? Was it Indiana, Michigan State that I said this year I think was my best? I think I tweeted that out. I think I said that this was the best game I've watched at least this year. It was just so much fun. Like the vibe in any game in Assembly Hall. I mean, even the men against Kansas was probably one of the best games I've ever experienced because they had the stripe out going on in the crowd, and just how loud it is in there is incredible. So I think I'm lucky to be literally about 100 feet away from Assembly Hall. So.
Yeah, its own rant aside, I met the top. I talked about getting to Indy, and you were like, really? And I'm like, no, like Assembly Hall. I have, like I said, have some guys that live not far down there. I want to visit them and get to know them better. And I just I don't care who the men or women play. I don't care if it's, a Division III school. Like, I just have to get down there. I've been to the Dean Dome. I've been to Cameron Indoor. I've been to the Joel here in Wake Forest. Like, I've been to all these historic venues in my area. I'm ready to just branch out. Right? And that one's number one on the list because it's just, I mean, the look of it alone is just like a lure of its own. I
will say, and I might get hate for this, but I maybe like Mackey more. I might like Mackey a little bit. I might like it a little more.
I can see it though. Like it has that, like, and you and your dad went on that trip earlier this year, and we're all over the place. And there were some videos, and the way Mackey's kind of an eyesore if you really think about it. Like from the bowl, like being on, like those seats that are near the floor, like. They're really close. Like, it's so odd, and it's got to be loud. Like, I imagine because of the bowl.
It's the ceilings. They did something with the metal ceilings, I think I heard, and it is loud in there.
Rutgers did the same thing with the rack, right? Like that, it's illegal. The way the rack is built now is illegal. Really? I don't know if people know that. Like, it's like 8,000 seats. The way they've done this, it's a fire code now. Like they're grandfathered in. There's something there. Like Ryan Hammer knows all about it. I'll tag him in this or whatever. He can explain it on Twitter. But there's something. The way the rack is built is just illegal now, I think, which is just crazy. Dream event you could cover?
Probably Stanley Cup Finals for me. I'm a big hockey person. It's the sport that got me into sports. Wow. I'm a big Carolina Hurricanes fan. But I could put that aside to cover whoever's in the finals. Whoever needs me, sign me up right now.
Wow. The bylines, the News Observer at the top, like I said, that's got to be, I know we talked a little bit about it off air. Yeah, look, I as admitting as I'd like to say, as much as I'd not like to admit this, my father-in-law got me into hockey a few years ago. Even though I've lived less than 30 minutes from the Canes over the last few years, and they've probably been one of the best fan bases in the NHL.
Absolutely.
I become a hockey fan here. Let's see, April 7th, whatever that Monday is after the Final Four. I'm like, all right, here we go.
Fair
Who's
enough.
good? Who's not? And I don't care. I'll admit it. Like it is what it is. I'll go to games though, watch it. It's just the intent of the fandom changes immediately.
It's hard to follow when you're following, like we said, like 3 other sports or whatever you're doing. Like I even
I'm not the only one though. There are people that are just fans that don't do this media stuff every day, and they don't care about regular season hockey, and it blows my mind. I'm like, it just people know, like the playoff hockey is there's nothing like it. Like it's the only professional sport that feels like college basketball in the playoffs.
Yep, agreed.
Dream event you could attend.
I don't know. That's a tough. It might be the women's Final Four, which I am attending and covering this year. That was like my dream of mine heading into this year was the hope to be able to cover that, and I will be there, and I'm very, very excited about that. So it might be that, or maybe the Olympics. I'm gonna go with the Olympics instead. I think I'm gonna go
that here soon. That's you don't even have to cover it. That's one you could just figure. The tickets apparently aren't that difficult if you can line them up early, and there's some stuff that you can find out there through NBC. It's pretty good. The issue is we haven't had it here in an incredible amount of time, so I don't know if that changes anymore. Like I know if people were saying that like the flights are the hardest part, and once you're there, it's like getting to the different villages. It's not that difficult. It's like once you kind of get all that stuff lined up. For me, it's the Masters. That's why I asked this question, because as soon as the Final Four is over, literally the next weekend is the Masters. So it's like I would pay an uncomfortable amount of money to go to the Masters.
Okay.
All right. Best advice that your dad's ever given you in this industry?
Probably just network. I think that's the best thing I've learned is just it's all about the people you know and just talking to people and learning from them. And I think that's my favorite part of the job. Like that's why I do it is because I love talking to people. I love telling other people's stories. And I think that's probably the best thing I learned from him.
All right. Tag everything for you will be below. I can't even talk anymore after 35 minutes in the morning. Everything for you will be linked in the description below, of course, at Goodman Sport on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it now. Let people know what you're working on. I know you said we're getting to a game here soon, so let people know where you're going this week. Anything you want to talk about, plug at the top, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I got a big week this week. I'm heading off to Illinois right now in about 5 minutes. Heading off to Illinois for a matinee game between Indiana and Illinois. I don't know why they're doing it at 2 p.m. on a Monday. I understand it's a holiday, but I mean, I'm supposed to have school. I'm skipping a class for this. Sorry, Dad. But I'm excited to get over there. Then we have Iowa, which comes to Indiana on Thursday. Folks are actually coming up for that one, so that'll be good. It's the star of the show. I think it'll be a packed Assembly Hall. Then we're heading to Chicago this weekend, and I'm hoping to see a Blackhawks game for the first time. Get some hockey in there. It's been a little bit. So that's my sports of this week, but a lot more travel to come next month for sure.
All right, and you already plugged some stories and stuff, so anything that you're working on, I know you got to get out of here. Anything that you're working on that you can talk about now that people need to check out and where they can find it?
Yeah, so on thenexthoops.com, I'm doing some national women's basketball stuff. I have an ongoing transfer portal tracker going on throughout, from now till whenever May. Is that when it closes? I don't know. But so yeah, I'll have everything updated real time in there every day with stats, conference, everything you need for that. Because there's not really one of those that exists. So wanted to start that up. And then, like I said, working on some sort of coaches poll that'll come out at some point on the next hoops as well. And then all my Indiana work will be on peaks.com, which is part of 24/7 Sports. And that's I do Indiana women's basketball, Indiana men's basketball. I did some football. I dabble, but a little bit of everything on there. So yeah, definitely check that out.
We'll have to give Indiana men the time next time. I just wanted to give women's game the stuff you cover at the highest level. It's fair due and give you your fair due. So thank you again at Goodman Sport on Twitter. That's Talia Goodman. Thank you again.
Thank you.